Wow. Okay, so this resume, right? It's like trying to sum up a whole library of tech knowledge.
It's true. Manish's career path is incredible.
I'm Manish Panchmatia, by the way, just in case someone's tuning in for the first time and they're like, wait, who are we talking about?
Laugh slightly.
So we're talking 3G network design, AI for things like Alexa skills. It's like, this isn't just a resume. It's like a history of where tech has gone in the past, like, however many years.
Yeah, and what stands out to me, just looking at this, is how it's not just a bunch of jobs. It shows how he built his skills. Like early on, CC plus and embedded
The
systems.
foundation.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Foundational stuff. Even today, they're so important, even if most people don't realize they're there. Behind the scenes, making everything work.
Like, it reminds me of people always say, oh, math is so important. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But then you see something like this and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like a strong foundation in math changes everything, right?
Absolutely.
And speaking of math, I mean, did you see this Indian National Mathematical Olympiad?
I did. I mean,
I
what?
was struggling to even, like, not completely fail algebra. So that kind of problem solving, I can't even imagine.
That analytical thinking it's crucial for the kind of work he did, like designing those 3G cellular networks so complex.
Yeah.
It's like those analytical skills, they show up in his early interest in AI and machine learning too,
Yeah.
even before it was like the big thing.
Right. Like he knew somehow before everyone else. That's incredible.
It's like he was ahead of the curve.
And the thing is, he didn't just stick with one type of company either.
Hmm.
Startups, big companies, individual contributor, leadership, he did it all.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that's got to be a valuable experience in itself, don't you think?
For sure. I mean, that variety tells you a lot about him.
Adaptable.
Right? He wasn't afraid to jump into different company cultures, different teams, different roles. Those experiences are so important, especially in tech, because it's not just knowing the tech stuff, it's knowing how to navigate all the human stuff too.
Yeah, like how to actually get things done.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about all these different types of companies and roles, but what about the actual work?
Yeah, let's dive into the projects.
Because this is where it gets really interesting, I think. We're talking about technology that, like, everyone uses every single day. 3G network design, that's the AirPro experience on his resume. Then he goes deep on 4G networks, develops a Wireshark plugin.
And that Wireshark plugin, really impressive technically speaking. I mean, he built it to analyze network traffic, specifically for this thing called the GTPv2 protocol, which is basically how data flows in 4G networks.
So he was like, what, a network detective or something?
Laugh slightly.
And then from there, he goes on to work on 5G core network solutions. It's like he was there for all the biggest moments in, like, the history of how we use our phones.
And the thing is, tech moves so fast, you can't just, learn one thing and be set for life.
You got to keep learning, right?
Exactly. And Manish really understood that, it seems like. Look at all these certifications, CKAID, CKA, CK. Those are all for Kubernetes. Then he's got certifications in DevOps and machine learning, too.
So he wasn't just like, oh, yeah, I read about that one time. He actually went and learned it.
Yes. And these certifications, they're not just pieces of paper. They mean he took the time to really master these new technologies.
It's one thing to, like, do a tutorial, right? It's another thing to actually use it in the real world. And he did that with real clients, with real projects.
Yeah, for sure. And that takes a whole other set of skills,
Oh, absolutely.
Like, for example, being a SPOC.
A what?
SFPOC, single point of contact. Basically, he was the go-to person for the client, the one who had to take all this complex tech stuff and make it understandable.
Oh, so you got to be good at explaining things, basically.
Exactly. And then there's this capturing requirements for a lawful interception feature. So that's getting into, legal and regulatory stuff for telecommunications.
That sounds complicated.
Oh, it definitely is. Highly specialized. And on top of that, he even went through a Nessus audit, which is basically this super intense security evaluation for telecom equipment.
So he's not just good at the tech stuff. He's good at all the other stuff you need to actually make it work in the real world, right?
Right, and that's what's so impressive. It's one thing to understand the technology itself. It's another to understand all the other stuff around it. The people, the regulations, the security concerns.
Like, remember we were talking about his work on that regional language news corps?
Yeah.
He was already playing around with text-to-speech synthesis back then.
Oh, yeah. Way back then. And then, look, years later, he's exploring Amazon Alexa skills.
Which is, what, voice interfaces and natural language processing, all that.
Exactly. So it's like, even back then, that early interest, even if it seemed kind of unrelated at the time, it ended up being useful later on.
It's like all this stuff connects,
It really does. And it makes you think about, what else is in there beyond the technology itself.
Yeah, exactly. And with Manish, it's not just the tech, it's the, I don't know, like the human side of things too, like volunteering.
Right. Art of living, contributing to Sanskrit Wikipedia.
That's the kind of stuff you don't usually see on a resume.
And yet it tells you something important.
Like what's important to him beyond just, writing code or whatever.
Exactly. And think about the skills you need even for volunteering.
Yeah.
Communication, right. Working with a team, solving problems.
It's like those things matter everywhere, not just at work.
Absolutely. And they can make you even better at your job, even if they seem totally unrelated at first.
And he's passionate about promoting the Sanskrit language, mentoring students. It's like he wants to share what he knows, help other people.
Mentoring especially, that's huge. Think about the patience that takes. The ability to explain complicated stuff in a way that makes sense. The leadership skills.
Totally. Those are valuable skills anywhere.
Especially in tech, when you're working with teams trying to get everyone on the same page.
So we've got this lifelong learner, right? But he's not just hoarding all that knowledge. He's blogging. He's on GitHub, Kaggle, sharing what he knows with everyone.
Which is so important, especially in tech where things change so fast.
So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. What does this all mean for the person listening right now, the person with their own, tech journey ahead of them?
That's the big question, right? And I think if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that, technical skills are crucial, but
there's more to it than that.
Way more.
Yeah.
It's about never stopping learning, about being open to new things, new ways of doing things, even if they seem scary at first.
Don't be afraid to jump into a new role, a new company, even a new field, like Manish did.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of connecting with people. Your network is everything.
So it's not just about being the best at coding or whatever. It's about being a well-rounded person, someone who's interested in the world, someone who's willing to help others.
That's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you valuable.
Because at the end of the day, tech is for people, right? It's about solving problems that people have, making their lives better.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, find those things you're passionate about, even if they seem totally unrelated to your job, and pursue them. You never know where they might lead.
And don't be afraid to share what you learn along the way.
We've got to give a huge thank you to Manish for sharing his incredible journey with us. This is why we do these deep dives, people. You never know what you're going to find. And until next time, happy exploring, everyone.